This one has been bugging me. I just started thinking about it the last couple months. The misnomer that single parent households have a tendency to be more low income, more in poverty. And you can add stuff here because that's what people always do. Now, I think the opposite is true. Typically, in dual parent households, there's a lot of arguing. Two people trying to make a life together, trying to figure out finances, trying to figure out the color of the wallpaper, trying to agree on all this stuff. There's going to be a lot of arguing, understandably. It's hard to live with somebody else when you're making a life together. It's much easier as roommates because you don't have that long-term commitment. You don't care what color the drapes are because you're not staying there. You're not going to be there forever. You don't care what the other person's spending their money on because that's not part of your bank account. As long as they're paying their share of the rent, their share of the utilities, keeping the house kind of clean in their area for what little they do, you don't care. Furthermore, in heterosexual relationships, it's typically the child care and, well, let's say almost always, the overwhelming majority of child care and household responsibilities of, making sure stuff is clean, stuff is washed, looking presentable, safe. It all falls on the woman, which causes a lot of arguments, which goes into my other misnomer. Somehow we got this crazy idea, because this is what we've been told, that most marriages or relationships, when they end primarily because of financial issues. I would have to say nope. The Snopes gives it a big old false. This Snopes gives it a big old false. From what I've seen, almost all, I'm not even going to say most, almost all, in my opinion, United States divorces are initiated by women. And the reason they want a divorce is because their heterosexual, male, cisgender, whatever, mate won't help do what needs to be done around the house or with the children. It's all dumped on her. And they say, you know what? I'm working full time. I'm having to take care of the house. I'm having to take care of the kids. What do I need you for? You're just another kid I have to take care of. And really, that's the reason my mom got divorced from my dad. There was no other reason other than he was just lazy, And I'm not saying this, I know I'm not saying this just because it's my mother. I'm saying from what I hear of other divorces, it was basically the same thing. It eventually got to a tipping point and they said, you know what, I'm dealing with enough nonsense from you. If you at least just helped around the house, we'd be okay. Do your fair share of childcare. But anyways, back to this single parent household misnomer. Typically when there's here's another misnomer. Having a stay-at-home parent is a good thing for the children. I say absolutely not. What happens in these, and it always happens, when there's a single parent household, it's usually the mother who stays at home, and the mother, again, is burdened with taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, and now in the traditional hetero relationship, there's even more of an argument because you're staying home. You should be doing all this stuff, and I shouldn't have to do anything once I get home. I should have to just plop myself in front of a screen, stuff my face with unhealthy food, get fat while you take care of all the rest, and you got to look good. So you can't get fat, only I can. So anyways, and because the female is burdened with all this doing the household chores, the kids don't learn how to do household chores. Typically the males. The females see what their mom's doing and saying, you know, and subconsciously, it's not even conscious, usually not conscious. The females say, this is my duty when I get older. Subconsciously, this is my duty when I get older, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, while he sits in front of a screen and stuffs his fat face. And the males, they see it too, and they say, oh, well, I get to sit in front of a screen and stuff my fat face while they do all the work. And again, this is typically not conscious. So they grow up and they don't do anything around the house. Now, this is what happened with my dad. This is what happened with my current partner. His mother did everything, his father did, and now my partner doesn't do anything around the house, and I do it all. I get a little vindictive. And that's why we have this issue with me, you know, working and such. You know, I have health condition. When I was working, I did the majority of the household chores. It was not fair. But his argument then was he made more money than me. He was bringing more, you know, there's always going to be an excuse when it comes to males, traditional males who were raised in a household where their mother stayed home and the father worked. There's always going to be that excuse of, I shouldn't have to do this because that's how they were raised, right? And it's an easy way out for them. Now, because these women are staying, they're not going out and getting jobs that could earn income. Or if they are out, it's oftentimes, especially when the children are young, it's part-time work. Like maybe they'll go to school and the mother will work part-time, but she's not able to get a good income because it's part-time work. Nobody gives good advancements, nobody gives good raises to part-timers. That's just the way it is. It's not fair. That's just the way it is. When they look to give raises, promotions, it's always for the full-time workers. Now, another thing is when the mother is a stay-at-home mother, she might have been able to get a job that made more money than the male head of household is making. If I said that right, I don't know if I said that right. Like maybe he's working, I'll take my own parents for example. My dad worked construction. My mother, when she started, she could have easily, right off the bat, made almost as much or as much as him. And then she could have worked her way up and got more money than him. But she was stay at home until they got divorced. And like I said, she divorced him because he was lazy. And she had already started working through, they used to call them Kelly girls, which I'm glad. I hate the term girl for grown women. But thank goodness they don't call them that anymore. But she used to work as a Kelly girl, and that's a temp, they're Kelly, which is now called Kelly Services, going to different offices. She was doing office work. And she divorced him, and she was able to divorce him and still carry on, you know, send us to private school, pay the mortgage, whatever. My father, he already had 2 kids. With us 3 kids, if there was any support, which I doubt there was, it wasn't it wasn't much. They couldn't take much, because he had 5 kids he had to pay for. So she was able to make more money than him. So in other words, this thing, even as a single parent, she made more money. And I say even as because that's what society's throwing at us, is like single parents are more prone to be in poverty and, having bad relationships, whatever, bad situations. Me personally, I think the opposite. And they're talking about how the kids are better off if they're in a 2-parent household. Especially, I hear the one male and female households. Absolutely not. If you're gay, asexual, transgender, whatever, no, it's not going to be better for you to have your children in a traditional cisgender, heterosexual, blah-de-blah household. Because you will be miserable, and then it'll show and it'll come out, and the kids will be unhappy and they'll grow up with that, and then just all that cycle. But what I'm saying is, so many women have so much to give, and they're oftentimes, if they're in a committed live-in relationship with somebody, typically, for whatever reason, their goals, their career, their ideas, that gets pushed to the side. When it's a heterosexual relationship, that gets put to the side. And the men, it's focused on the men's goals, the men's needs, the men's wants, the men's career, the men's relationships. The women always, and it's not occasionally, it's not most of the time, it's always the women's goals are lesser than, right? Because that's what our society traditionally has said. The men are the breadwinners, so therefore their goals are important. And even though women are now getting way, way into the workforce, it's still the men's needs, wants, desires, whatever, are more important. And so a woman who could be earning a lot of money oftentimes isn't, because it's much more likely, much more likely that a woman will move to meet a man's career goals. Let's say he lives in Michigan and gets a job in Utah. It's much more likely for that to happen, his job offer, them to move for his job offer, than a woman, if she gets a job offer, a well-paying job offer in Utah and she's living in Michigan. It's much, much less likely that her husband or even society would say it was okay for them to move for her career goals, even if that career is a very well-paying career, right? And then there's the vindictiveness. A lot of women, such as myself, say, I'm not going to work full-time and have to take care of the kids and have to take care of the house. So they don't put all they could be putting into the career goals, simply because they're just mentally exhausted and physically exhausted from having to do all the household work and the child care and having to work. They don't want to do the full time, or they just, say, I'm not going to work at all because I'm having to do all this at home. Plus whatever they got going on. A lot of women get into crafting, to earn a little bit of extra money, making candles, making soaps, whatever. But that's all they can handle. When in reality, if they were given that opportunity to blossom in their career, then they could be making very good money. Might even maybe more than their male partner. So this, in the case of my growing up, after my parents divorced, my mom she was able to make a better living for us and herself than if she stayed with my father, because my father was a carpenter. Hard work, not as much pay as you would think. Whereas my mom, she could learn new skills. The computers came into the workplace. You learned all these WordPerfect, Excel, all these other programs, learning how to do this, and that moved you up the ladder as in pay and promotions. My mother was able to do much better being a single parent than being with my father. Plus, she wasn't stressed. Like, there was a lot of arguments between my mom and my dad because my dad was just so lazy. Like, she would, when the roles switched and she went to work and construction was at a low in Michigan, it was low, and he stayed home. He didn't do anything. He didn't wash dishes. He didn't wash clothes. He barely took care of us. He did the bare minimum. So she'd come home and have to do everything. She worked full time and have to come home, do everything. See him sitting on the couch watching TV. This was before the internet. And of course she'd get mad, rightfully so. And that would stress her out. It just wasn't working. She was unhappy. And she was much happier when she was single, raising us kids. She wasn't stressed out like that. And that's another thing. Like, single parents are stressed out more. Well, they wouldn't be stressed out if they had a partner that they didn't have to divorce who was actually helping them. But when it's with the woman, it's dumped on her. You want to work, well, you make sure you fit that in with all the other things your society tells you have to do. The cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, the diaper changing, washing the kids, cleaning the house. I'll get up once a week and maybe mow the lawn. And that'll be my thing. So anyways, this thing about, single parents, it's just malarkey. Being in a relationship with somebody, I've seen it time and time again, just holds women back. Being in a committed relationship just holds women back when it comes to their career. I've seen time and time again, I'm going to go off on a little tangent, make this a little bit longer than it already is. But I've seen time and time again where women try to start home-based businesses so they can still do all the stuff they need to do, but they can have their business. And they would like to grow their business, but they're male, talking about heterosexual relationships, heteronormative relationships. The male just doesn't support. Again, sharing posts on social media, telling other people about his wife's or his partner's business, promoting it in them ways. Letting people know this is what my partner does. Handing out business cards, talking it up. That it usually happens in reverse, but it doesn't happen. It happens, when I say in reverse, I mean when it comes to men having a business and then women being supportive of that role. It usually always happens that way, but it rarely happens when a man is very supportive of his wife's entrepreneurial goals. I myself have that issue with my partner. He just does not support me whatsoever when it comes to talking out my business, handing out business cards, telling other people, sharing on social media. He says, I just won't do that. Now, granted, he's done it for other people, but he won't do it for me. So I don't know if there's some innate jealousy thing going on here, or if there's like some, maybe he doesn't want me to succeed in working for myself because he's not working for himself, and it's supposed to be a masculine thing, owning your own business, which I never saw it as that. I always saw it as women, being successful in running their own business. I think women are just more organized, more better at multitasking and doing all the stuff that more attuned to the stuff that makes a business successful, managing time, managing money, managing home and career, managing accounts. Another thing I would like to touch on is why single parenthood oftentimes is a better financially, emotionally, whatever situation for the children and the parents is men oftentimes, if it comes to a big spender in the relationship, cohabitational relationship, it's the men who are the big spenders. They want the toys, they want the car, they want the TV, they want the latest phone, they want the latest tablet, they want the latest iPad, the latest computer. They want the online computer games, which cost money, the ones where you play other people. I don't remember what role-playing game, whatever you call where, you play a game, but you got to pay for that, oftentimes. And if you want to bump up, you got to pay for it. So all that stuff, the latest lawnmowers, the riding tractors, the riding lawnmowers, the hedge trimmers, or, electric or gas-powered edgers, all these toys that are very expensive, four-wheelers, showy cars. That's much more of a man thing than a woman thing. Like if a woman wants it, she'll go out and buy a purse for like $30. Or, that's typically because these are the social norms. This is what we're cued into liking, and we carry this on through life. Women don't typically go out and just drop $48,000 on a car because it looks nice. A woman's better at managing money versus necessity, whereas men aren't. And as you can see where we're living now, this is proof positive. And there's also the thing that women are more likely, much, much, much more likely to say, let's save money to, get the roof redone, reshingled, instead of taking out a loan to get a new car or a four-wheeler or whatever, Let's put that plow on hold because we need a roof, Or let's not overextend ourselves. If we're going to pull a loan, let's pull a loan for the roof as opposed to this 38 or 78 convertible Ferrari or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So the lifestyle alone, plus the income, debt, for single parents who, let's be honest, is almost always women in the United States. Because again, childcare is shoved on the woman. Men would rather pay support than have to take care of their own kids on a day-to-day basis. Because of that just alone, not having somebody who's just, would you call it a spendthrift if they overspend? Because it sounds like spendthrift means they underspend. But anyways, they don't have this person who's just buying all this crap and constantly putting them into, into debt, while things that are necessary are going undone. It's nice to yeah, you look like you have money because you got a convertible Corvette, but your roof's caving in. How privileged are you at that point? You know what I'm saying? How well off are you? What that's not a high-class life. It's not even a middle-class life. And there's so many women, almost every woman I talk to has had this issue where the man wants to go buy toys, like the RV or whatever, instead of, getting, the lead pipes replaced in the house, So, and again, once it comes to where the finances are going to be spent, it's the men's word that rules, especially when women are, and I'm just going to call it what it is, entrapped in a relationship where she took the conservative, religious, acceptable role of being the stay-at-home parent while he works, because his excuse is, I make the money, so I get to say how it's spent. And we find that acceptable. We have accepted that in society. And so therefore he gets his car while, pipes are bursting. Or the kids are getting, the whole family's getting poisoned with, carbon monoxide because, he doesn't want to go and spend an extra $30 on a carbon monoxide detector because that's a waste of money. We're supposed to be spending that towards my, my new car that my extra new car that I want to get. So this causes resentment. It causes a lot of yelling, bickering at the very least, but usually a lot of yelling. Understandably, women in this position get upset. They get depressed because they have no say in how their own life is going. They have religious scholars telling them, or religious leaders, teachers, telling them this is the way God wants it. And if that's the way God wants it, God's an asshole. God's a misogynistic jerk. And he can go to hell. But this is not a healthy lifestyle. It's not a good lifestyle. It's, if you want to use terminology, it's a low-class lifestyle. When maybe you have stuff and you have a nice car, but your mother's depressed, your walls are caving in. Whatever, the house is cold in the wintertime because there's no insulation, but hey, we got an RV. So I'm just saying, I believe, and I have evidence, anecdotal as it may be, but so is the other side. The other side's sheerly anecdotal evidence that single-parent households can be much better households than dual-parent households, traditional dual-parent household. Another thing is, like, now when you got dual parents, you got one more person in the house, you just got to deal with their issues. Like if there's becomes a drug issue or an alcohol issue, some type of addiction, like if they get addicted to gambling. There also could be health issues. And once again, this always falls on the women instead of the reverse. Women are supposed to not ask for help, and they're supposed to do it all themselves. So like if the man gets MS, she's got to work full time. She comes home, she takes care of the kids, she takes care of the house, and she has to take care of him. Whereas if the woman has MS, let's just be honest, she has to deal with it on her own a lot of times, even if she's in a cohabitational relationship. Plus, she might have to take care of the kids in the house. And if he does anything, it's because he's got help. He applied for help, or he got his insurance to pay for help, to help care for her in her later stages of MS. So the misogyny runs deep. It affects all parts of our life. And yes, it affects whether or not, if there wasn't the misogyny in society, we probably would be better off with dual parent households. But because the misogyny exists and so much is dumped on the woman while the man gets off scot-free, in these days and times, all through history, I would think it would be better off if women just live single lives. Or just don't have any kids, so there's less to argue about. You know, you still have all the housework to do, but at least you don't have all the child care. So anyways, there you go. Oh, before I leave, this is a doll that I'm going to be selling. Voodoo doll I'm going to be selling. And that's, I'm selling this. I repurposed this. This wasn't offensive. This is something that's uploved. It's a nutcracker. It was an offensive nutcracker, and I made it into a Santa Claus. Look at, well, actually, it's a Mrs. Claus, I guess. Santa Claus is a woman, or Santa Claus is a man with long hair and blue eyes. And look at them earrings and earrings. Got a snowflake over there. You got a snowman over there. So there you go. Good deal. It's all for sale.